My brother Jake stalked and assaulted my girlfriend Emily at a wedding. An event that should have been a joyful celebration, but instead unraveled into a nightmare that exposed the depths of my family's dysfunction. My parents, predictably, leapt to his defense, shielding him as they always have, and now he's in prison for domestic violence. His second conviction, though you'd never guess it from their unwavering support. Emily, my girlfriend of 8 months, is 25, with a quiet strength and a warm smile that drew me to her instantly. That night, as she walked into the wedding reception, her presence radiant in a simple blue dress, Jake zeroed in on her like a predator spotting prey. He didn't hesitate, didn't care about decorum or boundaries. He practically shoved our mom out of the way to be the first to hug her, his arms wrapping around her in a grip that lasted far too long, his grin wide and unsettling. Emily, caught off guard, stiffened, her polite smile faltering as she had to physically step back to break free from his hold, her discomfort palpable. Throughout the dinner, Jake's behavior escalated, each action more brazen than the last. He kept finding excuses to touch her, brushing her arm as he passed the breadbasket, resting his hand on her shoulder as he leaned in to whisper something, his fingers lingering longer than necessary. He spouted fake inside jokes, nonsensical little quips that made no sense because they'd literally just met that evening, his laughter loud and forced as if trying to stake a claim. He shoved past me, not once but multiple times, his shoulder knocking into mine as he maneuvered to sit next to her, ignoring the seating arrangement I'd carefully planned to keep her close to me. Then came the moment that pushed it all over the edge. He picked up a piece of food from his plate, speared it with his fork, and leaned in close, trying to feed it to her while locking eyes with an intensity that made my stomach turn. Emily's face flushed, her eyes darting to me in silent plea, but she stayed polite, murmuring a soft, "No, thank you," because it was our first family gathering, and she desperately wanted to make a good impression on my parents, on everyone. She didn't want to be the one to disrupt the evening, even as Jake made it impossible for her to feel safe. The entire night, Jake didn't let up, turning his attention to me with a venom I'd grown accustomed to but that stung deeper in front of Emily. He dredged up embarrassing stories from our childhood, half-truths and outright lies, twisting them to paint me as a pathetic, bumbling fool. He spun this elaborate, completely fabricated tale about how he'd heroically saved my high school girlfriend from my supposed emotional abuse. A story so far from reality it was laughable if it weren't so malicious. I'd told Emily about my teenage years. Awkward, sure, but never abusive, and she knew he was lying, her hand squeezing mine under the table in quiet support. Yet my parents just sat there, nodding along, their faces beaming with pride as if Jake were delivering some sacred sermon, their blind adoration a wall I'd never been able to breach. After dinner, the situation spiraled further. Emily, ever the peacemaker, offered to help clean up, wanting to show she could fit into this family I'd warned her about. I was in the garage with my dad, hauling boxes of decorations he'd insisted on storing mid-event, when a nagging unease crept in. I hadn't seen Emily in too long. I dropped what I was doing, my footsteps quickening as I headed back inside, a cold dread settling in my chest. I found her in the kitchen, Jake looming over her, his body a physical barrier between her and the door. He'd cornered her by the sink, his voice low and oily as he told her she deserved someone more exciting than his boring, unstable, older brother me. He stood way too close, his hand braced on the counter inches from her hip, trapping her in a space she couldn't escape. She'd already told him to back off twice, her voice firm but shaking, and when she saw me in the doorway, relief flooded her face. She darted to my side, her body trembling against mine, her breath uneven. Jake just laughed, a hollow, dismissive chuckle, as if it were all some grand joke, but I could feel the fear radiating off her, her fingers clutching my arm like a lifeline. Emily and I had built something beautiful over those 8 months. Dates under starlit skies, quiet mornings with coffee and laughter, a bond that felt unbreakable, until Jake decided to shatter it with his obsessive, unhinged behavior. To understand how we got here, I need to peel back the layers of our family dynamic, a tangled mess of denial and favoritism that's defined my life. Jake and I grew up in an upper-middle-class bubble in a sleepy Minnesota town. Our parents thriving real estate agents who cared more about their pristine public image than the chaos brewing at home. I was 3 when Jake was born, a chubby, screaming bundle who instantly became the sun around which our family orbited. From that moment, he could do no wrong in their eyes, while I was cast as the perpetual screw-up, the scapegoat for every misstep, real or imagined. Jake's troubling behavior started young, red flags my parents refused to see. At 6, he smashed my gaming console with a hammer because I wouldn't let him play when he demanded. Hours of saved progress gone in a tantrum. Instead of consequences, they bought him his own console, chiding me for not sharing better, their voices dripping with disappointment. At 12, he fed my pet hamster chocolate, knowing it was toxic, watching with a blank stare as it suffered. They brushed it off as an accident, scolding me for keeping pets I couldn't properly supervise. In high school, he spread vicious rumors that I'd cheated on my girlfriend, a lie that tore us apart. They called it him being protective, their tone suggesting I should be grateful. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was a pattern of cruelty, a darkness in him they nurtured by never holding him accountable. That pattern followed us into adulthood. Jake, now in his mid-20s, still lives at home, working a cushy do-nothing job at Dad's real estate office, coasting on their indulgence. He's sabotaged every relationship I've dared to build. My last girlfriend before Emily? He convinced her family I had a gambling addiction, spinning wild tales of debts I never owed until they pressured her to leave me. The one before that. He told her I'd cheated on every partner I'd ever had. Another baseless lie that eroded her trust until she walked away. Each time, my parents either championed his interference, he's just looking out for you, or accused me of blowing things out of proportion, their dismissal a dagger in my confidence. When I met Emily, I vowed to break that cycle. I kept our relationship hidden from my family for the first 3 months, a secret sanctuary I guarded fiercely to shield her from Jake's chaos. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Brilliant, with a sharp mind that cuts through nonsense. Compassionate, with a heart that pours into her work as a pediatric nurse. And beautiful inside and out, with a laugh that feels like home. We met by chance in the hospital cafe, me grabbing coffee while visiting a coworker recovering from surgery, her on a lunch break, both of us griping about the bitter brew. That sparked more chats. Coffee became our excuse, and soon we were dating, every moment with her a reminder of what life could be without the shadow of my family looming over me. I opened up to her about my past, the messy truth of growing up with Jake and my parents' blind loyalty to him, because I wanted her to know what she was stepping into. She listened, her hazel eyes steady, and instead of running, she urged me to introduce her to them. Maybe they've changed, she said, her optimism a light I clung to, one of the many reasons I love her. She always seeks the good, even when it's buried deep. I relented, arranging a dinner party last month, hoping against hope she was right. It was a disaster, the beginning of our unraveling. A few days after that dinner, the harassment started. Emily's phone buzzed with strange calls. Silent at first, just heavy breathing or abrupt hang-ups that left her unnerved. Then came texts and voicemails, increasingly sinister, calling her stuck-up and frigid for rejecting a better option, words laced with venom. Some mentioned her work schedule, nights she'd be at the hospital, or describe her outfits, like the green scrubs she wore Tuesday, proof someone was watching her every move. She didn't connect it to Jake at first, but I did. I recognized the voices in those messages, faint echoes of his high school buddies, a pack of leeches who still orbit him, fueled by the cash my parents toss his way to keep him indulged. She blocked the numbers, but they kept coming, new ones each time, relentless. Then Jake's friends escalated, showing up at the hospital, posing as visitors but lingering in the pediatric ward where Emily works. They'd stand in corners, staring at her for hours, muttering comments just loud enough to reach her ears. Nice legs. Too good for him. Their presence a constant threat. Last week, it hit a breaking point. One of them followed her to her car after a grueling night shift, his shadow trailing her in the dim parking lot. She called me from her locked car, sobbing, too terrified to drive home, convinced he was still out there. I raced over, heart pounding, and drove her home while a friend tailed us to ensure we weren't followed. She started having panic attacks before shifts, her once steady hands trembling, her co-workers whispering concerns about her sudden fragility. Yesterday, armed with evidence, voicemail recordings, text screenshots, hospital security footage of one of Jake's goons lurking, I confronted him at our parents' house, where he still sponges off them. I laid it all out, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside. He sat there, smirking, that smug, untouchable grin I've hated since we were kids, and said he had no clue what I was talking about, but maybe if Emily weren't so stuck up, people wouldn't need to teach her a lesson. That snapped something in me. I punched him, a quick jab to the face, barely enough to bloody his nose, but he wailed like I'd broken his skull, collapsing into theatrics. Our parents rushed in, their outrage laser-focused on me, not him. They wouldn't even glance at the evidence. Mom sobbed over her baby boy being attacked. Dad roared that I've always been jealous of Jake, that I need therapy for my anger issues. When I tried explaining the harassment, Mom insisted Emily must have led Jake on at dinner, now playing victim to hide her flirting. Dad ordered me out, saying don't return until I apologize and get my head straight. I'm at Emily's apartment now, where I've been since last night. She's asleep in the next room, exhausted after hours of tears, terrified to face work tomorrow. Her supervisor's been kind so far, but she fears losing her job if this persists. She adores those kids in the pediatric ward, her passion for them a light Jake's snuffing out. I'm at a loss. Every time I think he's hit bottom, he digs deeper. My parents enable him, gaslighting us into believing we're the problem. The police won't act without direct proof tying Jake to it. Recordings and footage aren't enough. Emily's living in fear, her career on the line, and my family paints us as villains. Has anyone faced this? How do I shield her from this toxicity? Should I keep documenting? I need advice. I'm drowning. First, a heartfelt thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Your words cut through my fog of despair, showing me just how dire this has become. Emily and I took your advice to heart, pouring hours into gathering evidence. Screenshots of every menacing text, recordings of those chilling voicemails, security footage of Jake's cronies skulking around her hospital, plus statements from 3 co-workers who've seen it unfold. We went to the police, hopeful for justice, but it unraveled fast. The officer started out sympathetic, nodding gravely at the workplace harassment, until we named Ryan, Jake's best friend and a key harasser, whose dad's a local police sergeant. His demeanor shifted instantly, his tone growing cold. He said without ironclad proof Jake was pulling the strings, their hands were tied. Maybe Emily misread friendly attention from guys just hanging out at the hospital. He even hinted she might have invited it, his words a slap in the face. We demanded another officer, preferably a woman, but they stalled us, promising only to warn those caught on camera. A waste of time. My parents' response was a gut punch. The day after the police visit, Jake sauntered into their house sporting a black eye, swearing I'd attacked him again. I hadn't seen him since that punch 2 weeks prior, but they swallowed his story whole. Mom called me, her voice a torrent of tears, accusing me of losing control, of trying to ruin Jake's life over a silly misunderstanding. She said going to the police was proof I'm out to destroy him. Dad followed, his fury crackling through the phone. He threatened to cut me off financially, a hollow scare since I've got my own software job and apartment, then vowed to fire me from the family business, oblivious that I've never worked there. It's Jake's domain. It hit me hard. They don't see me, just Jake's shadow. Last weekend was the breaking point. Mom bombarded me with calls and texts, pleading to fix things as a family, promising Jake's remorse and an apology to us both. She swore they'd talked boundaries with him, that he got it. Emily and I debated, her wanting peace, me skeptical, but we agreed, one last shot. It was a trap. We walked into their house expecting a quiet dinner. Instead, it was packed. Mom, Dad, Jake, our aunt and uncle who worship him, and worst, Ryan and 2 of his goons who've tormented Emily at work. Mom dubbed it a family intervention. For 2 excruciating hours, they tore into Emily's character while Jake sat smugly, arms crossed. Mom ranted that Emily was jealous of Jake's good looks and success. What success? Claiming she'd flirted with him that first night, inventing harassment to mask her guilt. My aunt chimed in, saying Emily, used to male attention at work, misread friendliness as stalking due to a guilty conscience. Jake played the wounded saint, lamenting why she'd lie about him when he'd only wanted a sister-in-law, his voice dripping with fake hurt. Ryan's crew backed him, insisting they'd only visited his grandma at the hospital, a grandma who apparently roams floors daily. Then they attacked her sanity, night shifts making her paranoid, sick kids stressing her out, projecting onto innocent interactions. Mom suggested a therapist for her drama tendencies. Emily tried defending herself, showing the texts and voicemails, but they shouted her down, calling it misunderstandings or her provocation. Ryan described her outfits in detail, proof of stalking, but they twisted it into her seeking attention. When they invited Ryan's gang for dessert to prove they're nice young men, Emily's breathing hitched, a panic attack brewing. She stumbled out. I followed, but Mom grabbed me, demanding I choose real family over that unstable girl causing trouble. I chose Emily. We left, silent and shaken. Jake's friends have upped their game, spreading rumors at her hospital. Mental instability, false accusations. Her supervisor called her in yesterday, sympathetic but warning that drama threatens her job, suggesting a transfer. We've hired a lawyer for restraining orders. Slow going. Emily's job hunting 300 miles away. A colleague offered help. I hate this. She's crying before shifts, wasting away from anxiety. My family's delusional, police useless, Jake winning. How do I fight when they all believe him? Update 2. I wish I had good news, but Sarah's wedding last weekend shattered everything. I've spent days processing before writing this. What should have been a celebration became a nightmare, ending with Jake in cuffs and our family irreparably split. Sarah, my cousin, always saw Jake's true colors. As kids, she caught him torturing her cat, but my parents convinced everyone she lied for attention. She's been my ally through this, even writing a statement for our lawyer about his past. She invited us to her wedding, promising security and distance from Jake, only there because her parents insisted, seating us with her in-laws. We thought it'd be safe. We were wrong. The ceremony was fine. Jake a groomsman for Sarah's husband, our cousin Ethan, unaware of the drama. At the reception, Jake sat with our parents across the room. Emily, with me and Ethan's family, finally relaxed, her smile returning. Around 9 p.m., she went to the bathroom. 10 minutes later, I noticed Jake's empty seat. Dread hit me. I headed over, then heard her scream. I ran, heart racing, as Ethan and his cop brother rounded the corner ahead. They found Jake pinning Emily to the hall wall, forcing himself on her, one hand over her mouth, the other bruising her arm. Her dress was torn, tears streaming. They yanked him off as I reached her, her sobs breaking me. Jake, drunk, yelled she'd teased him all night. She hadn't even approached him, and followed him. She'd been there first. Ethan's brother called police. Ethan took Emily to a private room with Sarah to calm her. My parents fought the arrest. Mom screamed it was a misunderstanding, Emily's fault. Dad blocked cops, insisting it's family business. Jake raged, calling her a whore who'd asked for it, his meltdown filmed by guests. Parents now claim she lured him, self-bruised for revenge, saying Ethan's crew attacked Jake. Lies. Sarah's wedding video shows him stalking her, plus bruises and witnesses. Our lawyer says it's airtight. They're threatening to disown me if she presses charges, stormed my apartment. Neighbors called cops. Mom wept I'm jailing her baby. Dad vowed to ruin my career. Emily took a job 300 miles away. I'll work remotely. We move next month. Not running, just surviving. Sarah will update us. My family still denies Jake's sickness, blaming Emily even now. I'm focused on her and our fresh start. Yesterday, after 4 peaceful years, Mom called, hysterical, stirring emotions I'd buried, vindication and sorrow warring inside me. Emily and I married 2 years ago, a small ceremony with Sarah's and Emily's families, bought a house, and built a life. She's head pediatric nurse. I'm a senior developer, promoted last year. We're expecting a girl in 3 months. Our days calm until this. Mom's call came mid-meeting, ignored until her desperate voicemail. She sobbed that Jake married Lauren last year. News to us, no contact since the wedding. Met at church, a rushed union. She gushed they were happy until last week. Lauren's coworker called police after she vanished from work 3 days. Cops found her battered, broken ribs, fractured wrist, bruises everywhere. Jake started beating her 2 months in. Dad covered it, bullying her family with real estate leverage, threatening her job, convincing them she was unstable, like with Emily. Her promotion triggered Jake's rage. He beat her senseless. Dad told her to ice it and honor her vows. Her co-worker intervened. Jake's arrested for violence, Dad for conspiracy. Mom begged me to help, saying, family sticks together. Lauren's lying like Emily. I unloaded. They enabled Jake's life of abuse, ignored his cruelty, chose him over Emily at Sarah's wedding. Had they acted, Lauren might be safe. She admitted they knew he was troubled, protected him, Too late. I hung up, blocked her. Sarah says Lauren's parents now back her, crushed for doubting her. Jake's exes report similar abuse. Emily suggested we offer Lauren support via Sarah. She had me. Lauren might need us. I'm not cold. Enabling toxicity breeds victims. My family's done. I protect my wife and daughter now, far from their poison. Many asked for updates on Jake, Dad, Lauren. Emily and I welcomed Olivia 3 months ago. Healthy, radiant, parenting a joy that solidifies cutting off my toxic family. Sarah visited, her love for Olivia showing true family. Jake took a plea, 8 years for violence, parole in 5. Dad's case lingers, license gone, partners fled. Mom's in therapy, divorced dad, sent a 12-page apology for enabling Jake, failing me, hurting Emily, too late. We might allow supervised Olivia visits someday. Lauren's healing with her sister, divorcing, aiding prosecutors. More women report Jake's abuse. Her parents, apologetic, cut my family off, work with victim groups. Families divided, younger kin with us, older excusing Jake. Sarah's mom leads therapy for relatives. Emily's nursing director. I might start a business. Olivia ends the cycle. Only healthy love here. Cutting ties was right, pain and all. It's been 6 months since I last wrote, and life has shifted in ways I never anticipated. Some hopeful, others haunting. Olivia's now 9 months old, a bundle of giggles and curiosity, crawling everywhere, her tiny hands grabbing at the world Emily and I have built for her. Emily's thriving as director of pediatric nursing, her confidence back, though she still jumps at unexpected noises, a lingering scar from Jake's terror. I launched my software consulting business last month, a leap that's already landing clients, giving us stability as we settle deeper into the city 300 miles from my past. We've found peace here, surrounded by friends who've become our chosen family, yet shadows keep creeping in. 2 weeks ago, Sarah called with news that hit like a freight train. Mom showed up at her doorstep, unannounced, clutching a suitcase and a tear-streaked letter from Jake. She's been living with Sarah since, a wreck of guilt and regret. Jake wrote from prison, a rambling confession, admitting years of rage, blaming mom and dad for never stopping him, claiming he didn't know how to be good because they let him be a monster. Mom broke down reading it, telling Sarah she sees now how she failed us both, how her denial fueled his spiral. She wants to meet Olivia to make things right, but I'm torn. Her tears feel genuine, yet trust is a ghost after decades of betrayal. Meanwhile, Lauren's case against Jake unearthed more. An ex-co-worker of his came forward, alleging he stalked her 2 years back. The police reopened old files, and rumors swirl he might face extra charges. Dad's out on bail, living alone, shunned by most, his empire crumbling. Emily and I debate letting mom in, but Olivia's safety trumps all. We're meeting Sarah next week to figure it out, bracing for whatever comes.